It's another great deep dive episode of the Chicks on the Right podcast. Very, very excited that this week our special guest is Seth Dillon, CEO of Babylon Bee. And Babylon Bee now has a book out called The Babylon Bee Guide to Wokeness, which I know you're going to tell us about. But I know that you are not sort of the originator, the founder of Babylon Bee. So we wanted to hear a little bit more about the backstory of how you got involved with Babylon Bee and ultimately became the CEO.
Why do you have to tell everyone that? You know, let's let them think that it was all my idea so I can take 100% credit for it.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, no, it wasn't my idea. It was Adam Ford's idea. Adam Ford started the Bee back in 2016. He was doing like this internet comic stuff that was really kind of taking off, and it built a little bit of an audience. And he just saw a great opportunity to create a satire site that came at the issues from a different perspective than most of the satire you were seeing on like Saturday Night Live or The Onion and stuff like that. And so the Bee just filled this huge void where there was apparently a lot of demand for satire from that perspective. You know, comedy was really hurting from a right of center perspective, a conservative perspective, a Christian perspective. There wasn't a lot of good quality comedy out there that wasn't really cheesy and just kind of a turnoff. So when he created the site, and, you know, he's got a lot of talent, credit to him and the writers that he got involved with initially, because it just took off like wildfire. And I got involved a couple of years later in 2018. When I took it over from him in an acquisition. So he still owns a piece of it, but I run the site now. I have since early 2018, and we've just been building out a team of talented writers and animators, and it's just been a lot of fun to see it grow.
How many writers are there?
I was just going to ask that. How much has it grown since then?
We have a crew of over 20 now. We're about 25, 26 people now in total. But you know, it's a whole team. We've now got, you know, we got graphics people, we got web developers, we got the writers themselves. It's really, the core writing team is relatively small. It's a pretty small team producing a lot of content. But again, we don't have to produce a ton of content. We're not like a news site that has to be publishing a new article every 3 minutes. No one can handle that much satire, right? So as long as we're able to be productive enough to put out like 4 or 5 really great articles a day, you know, that's really kind of the target.
Yeah. And speaking to the whole satire thing, and I know we have a lot to get to, but I'm just very curious, like what your thoughts are on satire and humor, and how you feel like what you think the importance of satire and humor are, especially now in today's climate, because you see like college campuses, just listen, we're old broads, right? And we've seen a lot happen over the past 20, 30 years, and how humor has gone by the wayside. People don't laugh anymore, or people take offense to everything these days. And so just speak to that a little bit, how you think satire is, whether, you know, what you think about satire and how important you think it is, how you think humor is important, just what your thoughts are on that. I'm curious.
Well, you're right. I mean, people have started to get hyper offended by things. Like everyone's worked up about every little thing. They want their safe space where you don't offend them. They think that they have a right to not be offended, which is just nonsensical. There is no such right. But there's really kind of a reason for that. I always tell people that I don't think that everyone is so offended because they're legitimately offended. I think they're offended and outraged because they've learned that being outraged is a way of acquiring and retaining power. You can control people and make them do what you want and not say what you don't want them to say by acting extremely outraged and upset all the time. So I think a lot of it is fake. It's not righteous indignation. It is faux indignation. But as far as like the importance of satire, you know, I don't want to overstress the importance of like what we do. I don't want to overstate the importance of what we do. You know, we literally are not like saving lives or anything like that. But I think where satire comes to play an important role in society today is just by holding up to ridicule and mockery really bad and harmful ideas. It's really that simple.
How many of the headlines that you guys have written would you say have actually become reality? Because it seems like it happens more often and more often all the time, which is kind of terrifying. I have one of our people building a spreadsheet right now that
oh my gosh,
has a couple of columns, you know, the column for like the article that we wrote, and then the column for the fulfillment of the prophecy. There's dozens in there now. I think there's at least 60 plus where we have written a satirical article that then later came true, at least in some respect, maybe not completely, but at least partially fulfilled in reality, which is which is just wild. It's one of the reasons I say like satire is harder to do now than it's been in the past, because the crazier the world gets, the harder it is to exaggerate it to make a point. It's very difficult to parody that which is already a parody of itself.
Right.
But
that's got to be so crazy.
Yeah, I think that, I think it was it Jefferson? Somebody said that like the only real response that unintelligible bad ideas can have is ridicule. That's the best way to respond to them, is just to ridicule them, because you can't rationally refute something that is like unintelligible. It's sometimes more effective to just mock it and make it look as silly as it really is. And so that's, I think, really the role that satire has to play in a society that's gone kind of crazy.
And it's important. It's not only important, but I think people are super, super hungry for it, right? I mean, there are a lot of people there are still sane people out there who are wanting that. And then there are people, like I said, like the people who are in our generation and even generations after us who are looking for that. They're hungry for it. And people want to laugh. People want to have
they're hungry
fun.
for real comedy. It's a good point you're making. They're hungry for real comedy. They're hungry for comedy that doesn't try to tiptoe through this minefield of saying what you are allowed to say. They're hungry for comedy that actually makes fun of people, including themselves. I think it's a lot of fun to go to a comedy show where you're sometimes the butt of the joke. It's fun to throw your head back and laugh at yourself. I think it's a healthy exercise to engage in self-deprecating humor and just to kind of examine your own ways, your own thoughts, your own habits, and hold them up to mockery and ridicule, because none of us is perfect. None of us have it all figured out. We all make mistakes. Stereotypes are often very times true and rooted in reality, and it's okay to laugh at them and think that it's funny. So, I think a lot of people are very hungry for that.
Tell us about the book and what people can expect if they get a copy of the Babylon Bee Guide to Wokeness.
Well, I mean, wokeness is like a big word right now, right? It's kind of like the, I would say it's one of the, probably up there with like COVID and critical race theory as like biggest hot button words of 2021.
Well, that's not real. CRT is not real. So
right. No one's teaching that.
It's an illusion.
Right. It's all in your head. So, I think this woke culture, this idea that there's all this injustice that we have to be aware of, and we have to see it in everything and in everyone. It's itself a disease that is spreading virally through society and is infecting a lot of people's minds. And it's causing a lot of the things it's designed to address. For example, racism. There's all kinds of racist ideas coming out of the mouths of woke people, where they're trying to explain to children how their white skin color makes them evil right out of the birth canal, and it's just, this kind of stuff is just really, it's serious and it's bad and it's harmful. And this is where mockery and ridicule come into play. The book is just this fun and lighthearted, one jab after another at woke insanity and how stupid it is. And the funny thing about it is, it's not like we really have to exaggerate it that much to like make fun of it. We really just kind of say what they really think and feel. We just say it really directly and bluntly. And when you just really put out there what they're actually thinking and teaching and suggesting are the solutions to our problems in society, it's extremely funny. So there's diagrams and charts in there that are really funny. The animations are great. And it's been a bestseller now for several weeks. So I encourage everyone to go out there and get it. We're having a hard time keeping it on the shelves, actually.
Oh, that's great. Well, I read your blog post about the reasons that you should buy the book. And I'm curious because right away, I don't know if anybody's ever made this comparison before, but your writing reminds me so much of Dave Barry. Do you ever get that?
I have heard that probably once or twice. Mine specifically, or the Babylon Bees?
Well, yours, because I read your Substack about the reasons to buy it. And I was like, oh my God, this is, because I used to read his stuff all the time. And it was very flashback for me. Yeah,
he's a funny guy. I've read quite a bit of his stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of it has, impressed itself upon me.
Oh yeah, it's a very similar style for sure. So talk about your experience, especially with the Babylon Bee, getting canceled and getting fact checked and all of these ridiculous things that have happened, especially in the last year.
Yeah, it all started in 2018 when we wrote an article about how CNN had purchased an industrial-sized washing machine to spin the news before they could publish it. And it was the dumbest, stupidest thing ever. It wasn't even really that funny. It's just silly. It's just really ridiculous and silly. And Facebook fact checked it using their new third-party facting system. If you go back, like if you rewind a little bit, you go back to like leading up to 2016 when Trump got elected, and you had all of these accusations swirling around that Facebook and Twitter didn't do enough. They didn't do enough to stop the spread of misinformation, and that's why Trump got elected. So you had this like up until that point, the social networks were pretty open to just letting people say what they wanted to say. There was a lot of free expression happening on those platforms, a lot of freedom on those platforms. And that was really what they were selling them as, were these platforms for free expression. 2016 happened and everything changed. There was all this pressure. All of a sudden it was like, okay, well, they were taking the heat for being responsible for Trump getting elected. And so they felt they needed to do something about that. They needed to take drastic measures to stop the spread of misinformation. And so they started instituting stuff like, fact-checking programs where they're going to start fact-checking everything that you're saying on there to make sure that it's accurate and that it's objectively true. And of course, who are the arbiters of truth on these platforms? It's these left-wing outlets, media outlets, and fact-checkers who have their own axe to grind, their own agenda. And so, we get caught up in that because we're publishing these jokes on this site, but they obviously don't like our humor. They don't like the target of the jokes. But they're using the fact-checking system to try to get us, deplatformed. So we've been told by Facebook to apologize in the past when they threatened us with deplatforming and penalty, that like satire is different from fake news. They see the difference between the two. But we still bump up against this all the time. Our page is constantly being demonetized. Its reach is being limited. Our reach right now is a fraction of what it was when back when our audience was way smaller than it currently is.
We can relate.
So we're seeing a lot of that kind of stuff going on. And it's very frustrating, but it takes on many different forms. It's a big question to try to answer, but I mean, we're dealing with the other angle that they come at it from, which is this concept of punching down, where comedy should be allowed on these platforms. You should be able to make jokes. You should be able to do satire, but you shouldn't be able to punch down, which is you shouldn't be able to make jokes about marginalized communities or victims of oppression or whatever. Then you're just bullying. Basically, you're not doing real comedy. You should only be punching up at the systems in power. And it's the silliest thing. Again, it's just like the woke stuff. It reinforces a lot of the problems it's supposed to be solving.
It's the same stuff they told Chappelle. It's the exact same stuff they told Dave Chappelle.
And who makes those rules? Like, I feel like they're just so arbitrary. Like, who is making the rules to do that? And they just make them as they go, right?
It is very arbitrary. I mean, look, the definition of punching down is just, it's so ambiguous what they're trying. And they're leaving it open that way for a reason. It's so that they can interpret it however they choose to and apply it to whoever they want. And it doesn't have to be some kind of like fixed objective standard. Dave Chappelle is a victim in one sense. I'll say victim because I think he's winning right now. He's winning because this stuff often backfires. These efforts to try to silence people, to try to deplatform them, to try to cancel them, it usually ends up amplifying their voice, expanding their reach, and drawing more attention to whatever they're trying to suppress. So I think it's really a stupid effort on the part of the left to go after people so aggressively and try to shut them up. I think more people have watched Chappelle's latest special than would have otherwise if they hadn't come after him like this.
Yeah.
They never seem to figure that out. And don't tell them. Hopefully they don't watch your show because they won't figure it out. But we've benefited from the same thing. We've seen this Streisand effect thing before, where you try to silence something and you turn up the volume on it. So but it is that is exactly the line of attack that they've taken on Chappelle. It's this idea that he's punching down at a marginalized community. And I say this, I make this point all the time. If you have the power to punish people who just make jokes about you, then you're not really marginalized and oppressed. And I don't think the trans community today is marginalized and oppressed because they have that power. They can shut you down if you joke about them. Who in the history of the world has had that kind of power besides kings?
Right.
Yeah,
especially that small percentage of people who has that incredible amount of power. You're absolutely right about that.
It's a very small group wielding all the cultural and institutional power. They have all the major corporations lined up behind them with the same messaging, ready to go to bat for them. Politicians, celebrities, everybody's behind them. The marginalized people are the ones who say simple truths like 2 + 2 = 4, and not all cops are bad, and it's okay to be white and things like that.
And women have babies.
Only women can have babies. Exactly.
It's like, what kind of nonsense is that? Oh my gosh.
And men shouldn't compete in women's sports. You know, you say these kinds of things, and you are the one who is marginalized and ostracized and attacked and at risk of even losing your job. So really, the shoe's on the other foot with this stuff. And I also, I like to make this point. It's good I'm talking to women right now, because this is one of the things that, you know, is considered punching down for me. As a man, I'm not allowed to make jokes about women at the expense of women, or where women are the target of the joke, because that would be punching down. And the response I have to that is, you know, like, how condescending is that? First of all, that women are beneath me, so that when I joke about them, it's punching down. I don't think of women beneath me.
Right. I thought we were supposed to be equal, right?
Exactly. So I think the whole premise behind the whole thing is stupid. I think it's sexist and racist and misogynistic. And I think we need to reject all of that nonsense.
Do you get into Twitter fights? Like, can you think of a fight that you've gotten into on, so not necessarily Twitter, but any social media platform, or do you just ignore the noise?
Personally, do I get into them? I do. I engage on Twitter quite a bit. You know, I'm intentionally provocative on there sometimes. I mean, I quote tweet people all the time to mock their silly ideas and the silly things that they say. So I'm right in there, like, engaging in that kind of stuff all the time. I do sometimes respond to attacks that are directed at me.
Personally? Personally.
Yeah. But I don't normally do it seriously, where I'm like, okay, you've just said this about me. Now let me tell you why that's not true. I'll normally turn it into a joke and, you know, and make fun of them in response, or own it and engage in a little self-deprecating humor or something like that. I try to stay in character a little bit with stuff like that. You know, it looks very defensive when you're trying to just fend off every attack by trying to rebut it very seriously, especially when you're a comedian and a satirist. You know, it's not a good look.
Right. But on that note, has this life and doing this and being part of this, I guess, I don't know. I mean, for lack of a better term, community, because it's a community of people, right? And being conservative, if you will. I mean, has that changed your personal life in any way? Like, I mean, it's because you're famous now. I mean, let's just get real. People know who you are. Has that changed your personal life in any way?
Not dramatically. Unfortunately, I haven't been in that situation where it's like, oh, you know, you're famous and now you have all these like long lost relatives coming out of the woodworks and asking you for things or something like that. Oh, you're like a twice removed cousin from another marriage and some other family that, you know, is asking for something. I haven't encountered any of that. In terms of how it's changed, like, my life, I mean, most of the stuff I'd done in business before, it was really just behind the scenes, and I was sitting at my desk and with my head down, just trying to, you know, make my business successful. Being the public face of a company that gets so much media attention is new to me. So it's definitely changed my life. It was a new and unusual and exciting thing to be invited on, you know, like Fox to talk to Tucker Carlson in prime time and stuff like that, which was nothing that I really foresaw coming. But it's exciting. It's fun. I wouldn't say that I'm like real celebrity status, but I do every now and then get recognized while we're out to dinner or something like that. So far, only by fans who are friendly, which is good. I haven't been heckled anywhere that I've gone where people are trying to kick me out of restaurants or anything like that. I'm not that famous yet where people hate me that much.
That's good. And you're in a friendly state. You're in a good state because I am in Florida, right?
Yes. Yeah. I'm in a pretty friendly state.
You're in the land of DeSantis, which is like Mock's favorite. So that's good.
I'm kind of in love with him a little bit.
Yeah, she is. It's like really kind of crazy.
I bet celebrities kind of like living in states, though, where there's all these mask mandates where they can go with a hat and a mask on and no one knows who they are.
That's true. Very true. Yes.
That is a benefit, I suppose.
Yeah.
So when the world gets completely beyond parody, which it seems like it's closer to that than ever before, then what will be next for the Babylon Bee? I know it was your brainchild, right? The not the bee part.
Not the bee. Yeah.
That's how I was going to answer your question. That's our backup plan, right? Our great plan.
It's a great one. It's a great one.
It's, you know, not the bee for anyone who's listening who doesn't or watching that doesn't know what that is. It's like this spin-off of the Babylon Bee that covers all the real news stories that are so crazy they should be satire but somehow aren't. And so that's kind of like, you know, when satire becomes too difficult to do, I guess we'll just report the real news on Not the Bee. Yeah. And, you know, we'll just transition to just going straight to news because prophecy right now is working out pretty well, though.
Yeah, it's basically what Frasier was to Cheers, you know?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
never know. It could be like even it's as good as the first one, right? So
Dude,
you never know.
Not the Bee's a lot of fun. It's very entertaining. It's absolutely wild to look at the two. You know, we often do, you hear people do comparisons. Some people have even done like segments on their shows where they'll say, is this the Bee or not the Bee? And they'll put two headlines up there and you have to compare the two of them. Not the Bee really illustrates and hammers home the truth of the fact that the world has become too absurd to be satirized. Because you see stuff on there all the time where you're like, I don't know how this is real. I don't know how this is real. And then those are the headlines that our writers are waking up to every day, trying to think, okay, how do I satirize this? How do I satirize this?
How do you top the reality?
How do you exaggerate it? Yes, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
It's a wild, wild world, but we're having fun on both sides of it. There is still plenty of like low-hanging fruit and opportunity to do really funny satire. I think we're continuing to do that successfully. But I will say it is getting more challenging every day.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
I wonder if some of it has like some of the reason that people don't get the Babylon Bee or satire in general is we've often thought that it's just a lack of attention span in many ways. Because there was an experiment that we did several years ago now where I thought we should just put up a headline that says Betty White dies and spell it DYES to talk about her hair and see how many people actually click through to the article.
Right.
And everyone was like, oh my God, rest in peace, Betty White.
Yes.
And like, no,
so
and
disappointing.
Then they were furious at us. They were furious.
So disappointing.
Yeah.
And I think that's a part of it.
Did they think you just had a typo in the headline? Like you don't know how to spell, or do they not know how to spell?
No, they just didn't read, Seth. They just didn't read past the headline. So
they saw what they wanted to see.
Right. It was a case study in people and how their attention spans are very short and they're headline readers. And so we were very disappointed, actually. Very disappointed. Yeah.
Well, and I even said something like, make sure to click through and read this before you comment.
Right.
Like I had all the warnings, didn't help.
No, disclaimer. Nobody reads disclaimers. We do get criticized a lot for writing satire that's too believable. And I just throw my hands in the air. I'm like, what do you want us to do? I mean, we make these jokes and they come true 24 hours later. Blame reality, not the satirist. Like reality is too close to satire, not the other way around, as far as I'm concerned. So
oh my God.
But yeah, it is a challenge though, because you do have on the one hand, you don't want people to be believing things that aren't true. And just going on with their day, they see a headline that's outrageous and they think, oh, that's so terrible. I can't believe that person said or did that thing. And then they walk away with the impression that really happened.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be feeding into that. But at the same time, it's like, I mean, we're clearly, as to the extent that we can, trying to write genuine satire and not trying to maliciously mislead people into believing fake news. And you're always going to have people, though, who they see a headline, they buy into it, they think it's true. We have it happen with the left all the time. The left will see a piece of ours. Like we did one on how Trump had claimed to have done more for Christianity than Jesus himself.
Oh my gosh.
And we published that in like 2017 or 18 or something like that. And the left shared it like crazy because they wanted it to be true that Trump would say something outrageous like that. And it was kind of believable that he might because of his big ego, right? Trump says crazy, egotistical things all the time. It was believable. And this is the point I make all the time. If your joke if there's not a grain of truth in your joke, if it's not believable at all, then it's not funny. That's what makes comedy funny, is that it's rooted in reality. It's grounded in the truth. And the reason we say it's funny because it's true is because that's what makes for good comedy, is when it's rooted in the truth like that. So it's not, we're not really to blame for satire that's believed. I think, people need to be aware of what they're reading and the source of what they're reading, and they need to pay attention to what they're reading. But ultimately, it's an indictment of whoever we're satirizing if it's believable. That's an indictment of Trump if that's believable. It's not an indictment of us for trying to mislead you into believing something that wasn't true.
Yeah.
Okay, exactly. So did he say it or not? Because now I don't even know.
Okay. This is where it's interesting. Snopes rated that false because he had not said it at the time. But as it is with many of our stories, you just have to wait a little while, right? If you fast forward to September of 2021, Trump was on a radio program and he said he's done more for Christianity and religion in general than any other person in history. He did say that. He did say that. It just took a while. It took him 2 years to catch up to us.
Oh my God.
So now
okay.
I guess Snopes has to go back and change the fact check rating
Right.
from false
Right.
to true. Now, or prophecy fulfilled. I guess you could say that needs to be a new rating on Snopes.
That does need to
Prophecy
be a new
fulfilled.
rating.
Yeah, prophecy fulfilled. The B prophecy fulfilled is what it needs to be. Oh
Isn't
my
that
gosh.
wild? It's wild.
Yeah, it's very wild. It's too wild. Okay.
So
like,
what's next for you and and
Yeah.
Babylon Bee and the whole family?
Well, we have a lot of plans. There's some things I can't talk in detail about for what we want to do in the new year because there's going to be like surprise announcements and stuff. But you know, we have more books coming out. We're working on more. I don't know if you guys have seen, but we have a YouTube channel. We're putting out all kinds of video content now. We're doing sketches. We're doing animation stuff. We're really building out that media side and getting into more of the media stuff. There's a lot of hunger and interest for that. With everybody being on Facebook and TikTok and all these things, video is really what they're really gravitating towards. And it's what these apps are really rewarding anyway. But I think that, you know, the written satire is going to continue to grow and it's going to continue to be popular to the extent that it can be, as long as we're on these platforms where you can actually share it and reach a large audience. But we're going to continue to seek out new ways of packaging it and coming up with fun stuff that's, you know, that'll reach new audiences that aren't necessarily reading our stuff on Facebook or Twitter or anything like that. So we're having a lot of fun with that stuff and building out a whole team around the media stuff, which is very exciting. So keep an eye out for more of that to come.
Awesome. We totally will. Well, we're big fans, and I know the people listening are huge fans, and we're going to continue to follow, and we're excited about what's to come with Babylon Bee and Not the Bee. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, both of those. Keep your eyes on Not the Bee from when the Babylon Bee dies.
Yeah.
Seth, thank you so much. It was really, really great to talk to you. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. Sorry, I apologize if I punched down and hurt anyone's feelings during this interview.
Listen,
I will be tweeting about how offended we are.
Yeah.
Totally. So offended. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Seth. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both.